Hi, Leah Goujon here. I want to talk a little bit today about the Dominican Republic and buying land here, more specifically title, and also I want to talk about the building permits that you need once you do purchase land. When you are searching for land here in the Dominican Republic, you're going to find land that the owner has title to, and you will also find a lot of land that the owner has legal rights to but doesn't have a registered title. So let me explain that and talk about that. So first of all, let's start with the law, which is very much the same as Canada. I'm Canadian, so I'm going to do a little bit of comparing to Canadian law. But when we talk about the 20-year squatters' rights, so in the Dominican Republic, the same as in Canada, there is a 20-year squatters' right. And that just means that if somebody lives on a piece of property unencumbered, meaning no one tells them they have to leave, and there hasn't been any legal filings against them, they've lived on that property or their family has lived on that property for more than 20 years, the law says that that land belongs to them. So here in the Dominican Republic, most land here is passed down through families. So most of the land here that people are on has been in their families for hundreds of years, the majority of it. But they don't have legal registered title, but they also don't need it. The government recognizes that it's their land. They've owned it for more than 20 years, and legally they have the right to live on that land. They also have the right to sell that land, but in order to sell it, they have to register it into their name, which is, if you're just registering land that belongs to the government, that your family has been living on for more than 20 years, that registration process is typically not difficult. It only becomes difficult when somebody else turns around in the process and says, that's partially my land, and that's when we sort of have problems. But let me just go back. So most families here, the land that they live on is not registered with the government. If they wanted to register it, it used to be $1,000. I'm not sure what the fee is today, but the last couple of years it's been $1,000, which for a Dominican family is a massive amount of money. And it's an amount of money that they have absolutely no reason to spend. The government acknowledges that the land that they're on is theirs, that they have every legal right to do anything they want with it, including sell it. So they really have no reason to register it. The only reason that they would have to register it is if they wanted to sell it, because now you need to transfer title. And in order to legally sell a piece of property, that title has to be in your name. So if that property has in fact been lived on by that same family for more than 20 years, then that family registering and getting title is a process that's super easy. Like I said, the only time it becomes a problem is if somebody else in the process, and there is a part in the process where you have to sort of disclose to all of your neighbors, and you have to delineate the land, put some sort of, usually they just delineate it with barbed wire and say, okay, this is the land. You have to put a sign up that says, I'm seeking title to this land. This is the registration number. If you have a problem with me seeking title to this particular piece of property, you need to contact the city and quote this number. That's when there's problems. We've seen pieces of land here that have stayed stagnant, meaning not sellable, for years and years and years and years, because they have a really high value, and the people fighting just will not come to any sort of agreement. I can think of a beautiful beachfront property in Las Bainas that, it's been under family fight for so many years that nobody can get title to it. And it's too bad, because it's beautiful beachfront property. But anyway, so obviously when you're looking for property here, to be able to see a piece of property and the person that you're talking to, the owner, says, oh, here is my title, and he shows you a piece of paper that delineates the land and shows the land you're talking about and shows the owners of that property, and let's say it's just him or just that one family. So, that's the best case scenario, because the process that he had to go through to get that title document is the process that typically causes problems here. And that's when somebody disagrees. So if they've already gone through that process and the government has already registered title to them, then it's easy. You just, that title can be transferred to you. In fact, one of the things that I did when I bought my property, I knew that the person I was buying it from had owned the property for 30 years. But really, that's all I knew. And he was very confident that he had title and that the title was transferable to me. So one of the stipulations that I put in the agreement of purchase and sale was that if, first of all, I only gave a percentage down payment and the rest of the money would be paid once I got title. There was a clause in there that said if for some reason he couldn't get title, he owed me back double my deposit. And I did that because, he's not going to agree to that if he doesn't think he's going to get title. If he thinks that there's somebody else on title, or he's got some ex-wife in the past that might lay claim somewhere, like if he thinks that there's anything possibly that is going to stop him getting title, he's not going to sign that. So for me, that was just further cement evidence that that title was going to be transferable to me. So just going back to the land that isn't titled, because honestly, when you're looking for land here, 80% of the land that you look at won't be titled. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't look at the land. It just means you have to do a lot more investigation. And most of that is talking to the neighbors, honestly, because the neighbors will be the first people to tell you, oh no, we have part ownership to that land. My grandfather farmed it with their grandfather, so therefore we also have rights. One of the things that I came across here in Los Adenos when I was looking for land, and I'm sure it's not unique to Los Adenos, although Los Adenos was in a very unique position. Unique because it was literally a remote fishing village for centuries, like almost up until the 1970s. And then there was a small airport that was put in, a small place that people could fly from the capital. And that started opening it up in the 70s to a little bit of tourism. And it was the French that first started coming here. And they would, fly from France directly into the capital and then take these little island hopper commuter flights up into Portillo. And so they were the ones that first started a little bit of a demand on buying property. And of course, if these guys are coming in and they're wanting to buy property, then these Dominican families are now having to register their titles. So that was the first real push here in Los Adenos for actually land, like literally transferring title and not just being passed down in the same family. So there was a Dominican out of the capital who obviously had some money and saw an opportunity. So what he did was he literally just started going around and registering plots of land in Los Adenos. And, he paid whatever amount of dollars to register the land. And the thing is, he, again, had to go through the same process of delineating the land and putting the sign up. But the owners, they would, they'd kind of go to the city, and the city would then let them know, well, no, he's registered title, but you have squatter's rights. So he can't sell it without you, but now you can't sell it without him. Like, he's registered title. And they could have fought it. They could have hired a lawyer. They could have, registered their own title. Like, there was a process available to them. But most of these families, at the end of the day, they not only knew that the property was theirs legally, but most of them at the time had no intention of ever selling their property. So for them, their property is only ever going to be handed down to their children and their children's children. So for them, it was a non-issue. So this guy going around registering land was more of a nuisance than anything else. And again, a lot of people here are illiterate. So a lot of times people were served documents and they were just kind of told by, maybe a town elder or a village or a barrio elder, like, oh, it's a document you don't need to worry about. And they didn't. However, it was possible for this person to register land that he had no rights to. So now what happens is, it's not just the question of, is there any adjoining neighbors or any family members? Like, is there anyone else that might have an interest in this property? This guy's name was Raphael. You kind of also had to see, well, did Raphael also own a piece of it? Because I can tell you, like, honestly, it was like 70% of the empty, untitled lots that I looked at, he had a piece of. And he was only typically asking a couple $1,000s on his investment to be paid to him as part of the sale. But, it was a question that had to be asked. In one particular deal, I had gotten almost to the very end of negotiations when all of a sudden this came up, and he wanted, I think it was $10,000 for this particular piece of property. And it, as a percentage, it worked out to be about 10%, I think it was about 8 or 10% of the actual purchase price. So to increase the purchase price by 8 or 10% for me, it was just absolutely, it made the property, now you would be paying more money than what it was worth. So for me, the deal fell apart. But in most cases, he was only asking a few $1,000s, but still, I mean, it was just something that I came across that was very odd. So buying untitled property here is doable, but I mean, honestly, due diligence around that is a lot greater. So my recommendation is to, buy, not only just buy titled property, but also set up a few clauses in your agreement of purchase and sale that protects you for title transfer. So the other thing that I want to just talk about quickly before I close out is once you do have title and the property is yours and you want to build on it, you now need some building permits. And the permits here took about 8 weeks. And that was kind of in the height of COVID. So, I was warned, it could take 3 or 4 months, and it took 2 months. So, and that was for all of the departments. So I'm going to, in the comments, I'm actually going to relist the different departments that I needed permissions from, and I'll give you the price that I paid for those permissions to just give you guys an idea. Now, some of the prices, especially like the Ministry of Tourism, is based on the number of bedrooms. So the price I paid, certainly could be very different than the price you might be paying depending on the number of your bedrooms. So the first one is City Hall. So City Hall is just the local municipality, and there's 2 fees that you pay to them. One is land use and one is construction. And they also provide you with a document saying, okay, these are the rules that we're going to give you that you have to abide by throughout your build. There's the Ministry of Tourism. Now, not all land here in the Dominican Republic falls under the Ministry of Tourism. Because I'm in a beach town and close enough to the ocean, my property does classify as a tourism zone, so I do fall under that ministry. And that's one of the fees that's by the number of bedrooms. There's a fee that gets paid to the College of Architects. So every time you have an architect to do up drawings for you, he has to pay a fee to the College of Architects, and they're going to charge you that fee. And then the last one is the Ministry of the Environment. So the Ministry of the Environment will come in and sort of review the property and look at, whatever they look at. And they not only give you permission, but also recommendations about, connections to services and land use and water drainage, things like that. So it's a document that also you need to sort of abide by. But anyway, those were the total government agencies that I had to deal with and get permission from. And those permissions are good for 1 year from the time that they are stamped. So after 1 year, you would have to reapply for permissions or apply for an extension, depending on who you're applying to. So anyway, like I said, I will put that list in the description and what I paid for each of those permissions. If you guys have any other questions about title or getting permissions to build, please feel free to ask. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really say that I'm going to give you a legal answer, but I can give you an answer just based on my own personal experience. Anyway, have a great day.